let's leave the major league talk there. We'll get some of it in with Tom Housenick. Tom Housenick from the Morning Call. How cool is it for you to be back at games with fans watching baseball?
It's almost normal, but it sure beats what we had last year, which was nothing. So it seems like it was almost longer than a year being away, but it's just nice to hear crack at a bat and then hearing some cheering behind it. It was kind of surreal just sitting there at some of the alternate site games they had, and they had no fans there. So it was just weird to hear everything in the stadium. So it's been nice to get back to some normalcy. I think everybody involved, including the players and even the manager, doesn't mind talking to me every day. So it's a good thing.
Wait, you just knocked me right off my chair. So they actually you said they don't mind. Would you go as far as they missed it so much that they like talking to reporters?
For the first homestand, yes. I'll see how Gary Jones feels a week after next when he has to deal with me for 6 games in a row again. We'll see how that goes. But, I mean, it was, again, I think everybody just missed that normalcy, whether, it gets monotonous after a while for everybody involved having to talk every day to us. But, again, that's what we all grew up knowing. That's what we got involved in. We know this was going to be the way it is. And, aside from it being on Zoom, the interviews as opposed to being in person, it's as good as we can hope for at this point.
Well, you mentioned knowing the way it's going to be and the way it is. Right before you got on, Jason and I were having our monthly discussion on Vince Velasquez. Once again, he's earning, I use that in air quotes, his start. What do you see with Vince Velasquez? And please tell us that what you're seeing is that somehow this time, after all these years, it's going to be different.
I can't say that with confidence. Again, we've seen short bursts, and you can dismiss that one outing, which seems like 15 years ago when he struck out all those Padres, and everybody thought he was frontline material. The kid definitely has stuff. He's no longer a kid. But again, we've seen stretches like this where he looks like, yep, he's turned a corner. He's mentally strong enough to handle it. He's going to be more consistent. Even his bad outings are going to be better than they were. But, we've been down this road a few too many times to get tricked into thinking that he's good to go. Again, it's all about potential. Everybody knows that potential is there. His stuff will play. He just has to trust it and somehow find a way to be consistent. Again, it's great for now. But I'm not ready to say, hey, he's our number 5 guy for the rest of the year. I couldn't do that. And I don't think anybody would want to tell him that because, again, somehow he'll find a way to put pressure on himself and just have one of those outings that leaves everybody just, monumentally frustrated.
Well, and one of the reasons that they need Vince Velasquez in service, Chase Anderson and Matt Moore have not always worked out at times, but Spencer Howard is down there with you trying to rebuild a little bit and make him into a starter again. What have you seen out of him this year?
His fastball has played well, but he has not had a feel yet for the off-speed stuff. And obviously he got to have that at the next level. He's been able to get away with that for his 2-inning stints down here, but that's something that still is clearly a work in progress. Again, his velocity is not where it was when I first saw him in Reading a couple of years ago. That was 97 plus. We haven't seen that, but he's consistently sitting in the mid 90s. His location is getting better. But in his first start in the Lehigh Valley, he could not throw any of his off-speed pitches over for strikes. And he left the game after issuing a 4-pitch walk to the pitcher. He just didn't have full command that day. But again, he got himself through 2+ innings, didn't give up any runs. And you say, okay, that's great. But again, he needs to show he's more efficient with all of his pitches and before they think about trying him again at the next level. Again, his fastball will play, but major league hitters will hit that no matter how hard you throw it. So they're going to have to find a way for him to just get that consistent feel. And again, he's supposed to pitch on Sunday. That's his next turn, but they might just say, hey, look, that'll be the second look that the Yankees AAA team is going to get a look at him in the series because they're all 6-game series. They might push him back to the Tuesday opener, which would be in Syracuse for his next start. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But again, he's not thrown more than 44 pitches in any game this year, whether it was the 3 with the Phillies or the 2 with the Iron Pigs. That's been the max number of pitches. So no matter when he goes up to Philadelphia, he's not going to be, completely stretched out to somebody thinking he can go 5, 6, or 7 innings. That probably might not happen this year at all, but it's certainly not going to happen in the near future. He's on a very strict innings limit, pitch count limit, and for the foreseeable future, that's the way it's going to be. They're going to be very cautious with him, and I get it. But he's even if he was not on a limit, he's still not where he needs to be to face major league hitters right now.
Okay, so if he's not the answer for at least this season, Chase Anderson and Matt Moore haven't done well enough in my mind that I feel comfortable with them as the 4 or 5 starter, and I will always have doubts about Vince Velasquez. Is there anybody else that you see in their system that can be plugged in this year who would be better than them, or you think could project as somebody that could be better than them and help them through this season?
I wish I could say with confidence that somebody like Adonis Medina would be that guy. He's the one that they hung on to when they made the Real Muto trade with the Marlins. He's improving, but I don't think that he's the guy that's going to get you there anytime soon this season. I mean, maybe come August he turns a corner, but right now he's inconsistent with his location. Again, hard thrower, but when you make mistakes in the middle of the plate, you're going to get hit. And his mistakes have been magnified through the alternate site games and for his first couple of starts here in actual AAA games. He looks really good for stretches, and then he kind of misses location once or twice, and guys don't miss it even here at this level. So he still has some growing to do. He could potentially be that guy, but I couldn't think to say that he would be the guy. Hey, come July, and there's nobody at the trade deadline worthy of picking up, this would be your guy. Right now, that's not your guy, but he has your most promise right now. Bailey Falter, left-hander, he's probably a year away. He's missed so much time in the previous 2 years before the pandemic with some injuries, so he doesn't have a lot of innings under his belt at the leagues to begin with. So this is a year not to mess with that. I think they just let him pitch every 5th, 6th day at AAA and just see where he's at next spring training. So they're your 2 best young pitchers currently sitting in AAA, and I don't think you can say with certainty that they're going to be the guys that could fill a spot in the rotation in Philadelphia at any point this year. So to answer your question, no.
What about Damon Jones? Is he somebody that ultimately now figures to be in the bullpen, or is he somebody that can go back and be a starter and kind of be the guy that you can get at least 5 or 6 solid innings out of?
He's an interesting question because 2019 was a crazy year for him. He goes through all levels, single, double, AAA. Breezes up until he gets to AAA and then runs into some trouble. His location is not great, and he paid the price for it. And last year was probably a good thing for him to just kind of work on being able to repeat his mechanics, which really kind of hindered him in 2019 when he got to AAA, and just fine-tune his off-speed pitches. And they've kind of put him in a role now where he's operating out of the bullpen. Sometimes it's later in games, sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's to finish an inning, sometimes he goes multiple innings. I think that's enough on his plate. I don't think he's a guy that you can say, oh, hey, Damon, we have a spot, a number 5 spot potentially in the Phillies rotation, and we need to go back to starting. I don't think that would work well for him mentally or physically. I think he's finally getting to a place where he's comfortable with all of his pitches. His mechanics are getting better. Again, I would not yo-yo him. We've seen that not work out real well with Daniel De Los Santos. Now here's another guy. He finds his way back, finds a niche, in the back end of the bullpen here at the alternate site. He's throwing harder than he was when he first came over 4 years ago, and now he's gets thrown up in Philadelphia, and he gets thrown into an extra inning game in Atlanta, and it doesn't work out real well, and everybody's like, well, this guy's not the answer. I think long term, if they left him alone and told him, hey, look, you're pitching 1 or 2 innings out of the bullpen, that's the rest of your time in the organization, I think they'll get something out of him. He can be a real contributor. Now, I'm fearful that if they try and do the same thing with Damon Jones, that they won't get much out of him at all. He's got a chance to be a really good left-handed bullpen guy, throwing mid to upper 90s, and his off-speed pitches are getting to be major league quality. But again, I don't think he's ready to take that next step, and he's certainly not ready to go back to being a starter or being a guy that could maybe help the Phillies out in that capacity. I really don't think so.
With the big club, we've seen lots of center field woes. Roman Quinn, who we like and have covered for years, just like you, injured again. Not really his fault. We've seen Scott Kingery go up and down, try different positions. Mickey Moniak has seen some time with the big team. What's your take on these guys they're trying to use to fill that role in terms of their development, particularly Kingery and Moniak, who people have so many questions about?
I'm kind of torn. I'm trying not to sound fan-like in this assessment, but when they called up Odubel Herrera to play center field, they called him knowing full well that he was going to play every day unless he was hurt. And I just feel like they have never really done that with either one of the guys you mentioned. And again, I think Nick Maton is probably not ready, but you saw what happened when he got up there and he played for every day for 2 weeks. Now, it was at different positions, and he batted different places in the lineup. But when he knew he was going to be in the lineup every day, he got some consistency in his swing, and he was able to contribute. With Moniak and Kingery, who were in different stages of their development, they haven't gotten any sort of consistency. And again, Moniak went up out of necessity. I think he could have used another 3 months steady at bats in AAA, and then I would think that based on his progress he's made throughout the system, that he would have been ready to play in the major leagues. But out of necessity, they had to get him up there and give him a shot. With Kingery, I'm afraid that they messed up a good thing. When they called him up, signed that contract a few years back, he was the best second baseman in the system they've had in a long time. Defensively, he was as good as anybody since I was a teenager, which is too long ago to talk about. He was fantastic. And I think if they would have said, hey, look, Scott, you're going to bat eighth and you're going to play second base until you need a day off, I don't think we would be having this discussion about him 3 years later. But I'm afraid that different positions, the different places in the order have really hurt. There's been some issues with, his swing coach that he used that's not affiliated with the Phillies, and how that's all kind of played into it. When he was using that swing coach and he was finishing up AA and moving to AAA, he knew exactly who he was. He was a doubles guy who could steal bases and play defense better than anybody else. And then suddenly he tried to become something that he wasn't. So I can't fault anybody outside the system for what's happened with him offensively and what's happened to him mentally. So I'm afraid that, Kingery may not be able to be the person that he certainly looked like that I saw in 2018, 2019. So whoever gets the chance in center field, they got to know they can play there every day for like a month or so. It's just to feel comfortable, work out the pressure that they're feeling, knowing that this is their chance, and just let them go. Again, I have never been an Odubel Herrera fan since his All-Star year. He's never been my kind of guy, the way he plays. The streaks, when he's hot, and he had some hot stretches in his early part of his career at the Phillies, he was hard to get out. But too often than not, he was atrocious in every facet of the game. Otherwise, there was either one or the other you got, and that would drive me crazy as a manager, or as a hitting coach, or as a defensive coach. He drives me mad. And again, he's in a hot streak now, so Phillies fans are fine. But again, there's going to be a stretch where he goes 6 for 60 and drops fly balls and has a base running blunder, and he just doesn't have that baseball savvy that some other guys have. Now, he's athletically gifted. There's no question about that. Sometimes that makes up for your lack of baseball refinement. But he, long term this year and beyond, he's not my guy. And I don't know who the answer is, but whoever it is that they think it is beyond Odubel, they have to give him a shot. And again, Roman Quinn's probably not the answer, because what we've seen, he can't stay healthy. But whoever it is has to get a legitimate shot to say, hey, look, I'm running you out the next 6 weeks, barring a day game after a night game where you might need a break once in a while. But you're our guy, and let's see who can play center field every day. Now, I'm nervous if Nick Maton has to get moved out there because he's a pretty good middle infielder. But they may not have a choice. They may see that as not having a choice. So we'll see.
Tom, we look forward to reading your work in the morning call, follow you on Twitter, and giving us updates from what we can expect coming up. Thanks so much for always giving us some time. You take care of yourself, all right, man?
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good weekend. Thank you.